Coming up, the birth of Amsterdam, the stillborn birth of Philadelphia, and God, as always, keeps talking to crazy people. I'm Jesse Joyce. This is Next Week in History. October 26, 1984, baby Faye receives a heart transplant from a baboon. Not to be confused with Elizabeth Hasselbeck, who received a brain transplant from one. October 27, 312, Constantine the Great sees a famous vision of the cross, which he interprets as a message to convert to Christianity. Theologians dispute the meaning of the message and believe God was instead suggesting that Constantine drowned several kids in a bathtub. October 26, 1905, Norway becomes independent from Sweden. Norway tried to model its constitution after Sweden, but it was just a series of illogical pictures, and upon completion, Norway was left with several unused pieces, to which they ended up saying "F*** it," and threw them in the trash and then got drunk. On November 1st, 1870, the U.S. Weather Bureau makes its first official meteorological forecast. Back then, there were only two forecasts. God is angry, God is not angry. October 28, 1775, during the Revolutionary War, a British proclamation forbids residents from leaving Boston. To which citizens of Boston replied, "Thanks, but this is Boston. None of us plan on leaving anyway." The proclamation was considered unnecessary to prevent Bostonians from leaving, as alcoholism in the public school system would make sure of that. November 1st, 1848, also in Boston, the first medical school for women opens, the Boston Female Medical School. It would be the first situation where female doctors had the chance to work on female patients. Many of those pioneering young female doctors went on to become world-renowned smaller brain surgeons. 1952, the United States detonates the first hydrogen bomb, codenamed Mike, in the Marshall Islands in the Pacific Ocean. Couldn't they have picked a better code name? Maybe one that wasn't the most common guy's name? "Hey, everybody get ready! We're blowing Mike on my signal!" Next week, in 1682, the traditional founding of the city of Philadelphia. They commemorated the event by pouring out a bottle of warm piss and getting stabbed over $3. October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles broadcasts his radio play H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. Widespread panic ensued. One woman ran into an Indianapolis church where evening services were being held and yelled, "New York has been destroyed! It's the end of the world! Go home and prepare to die!" Which coincidentally is the exact same thing my grandpa said when we elected Obama. 1517, Martin Luther poses the 95 Thesis on the door of the Castle Church in Wittenberg. He had 95 problems and the church was one. Through 95. He really hated the church. Ow. Next week in 1904, the first New York City subway line is opened. It went on to become not only one of the biggest subway systems, but also the world's fastest public toilet. Next week in 1689, on October 26th, General Piccolomini of Austria burned down the city of Skopje to prevent the spread of cholera and then died of cholera himself. Cholera is an infection of the small intestines that causes deadly diarrhea. Well, there's his first mistake. If that's the case, he should have burned down Mexico.